are here with none other than Senator Cory Booker. This morning, we're going to be talking a whole lot about everything you guys want to know about social justice, and we're going to talk a little bit about what inspired Mr. Booker to get into politics as well.
First of all, welcome to my office. Thank you for coming
Thank you
here.
so much.
Appreciate it.
You mentioned that as a child you used to watch the RNC and the DNC and just tune into politics. I want to know, where's the root of that passion come from at such a young age to pay attention to something like that?
Well, you know, James Baldwin said that children are never good at listening to their elders, but they never fail to imitate them. And so I had two parents who were very focused on issues of social justice and really saw American history as this continuing evolution towards a more perfect union, towards a more just nation. But that didn't just happen accidentally, it happened because folks struggled for it and fought for it. And so the political contest wasn't about the gamesmanship of politics. To them, it was about the real issues of our time. And when people are trying to cut things that are investing in people, whether that be cutting education or even just the kind of safety net that keeps folks from falling and their children falling through the cracks, my parents were very engaged. And so the leadership of the time, whether it's Jesse Jackson's famous speech in the Democratic Convention, or you capture these sort of moments that, for me, were very compelling.
I think that's an interesting thing to say because I argue with my parents all the time about politics, right? We didn't start having those discussions until later on in life. I didn't find my way into like being engaged or developing some type of base level knowledge of what was going on in the country, right? But you're saying that you and your parents had those discussions and
don't get me wrong, I was a kid. I was playing video games and sports and stuff like that. But when you're sitting at a kitchen table, from the time you can remember, 4 or 5 years old, and you have the adults around, many of them participated in the civil rights movement, telling stories, talking about their pains, talking about their aspirations, you absorb those things. So whether you know it or not, you know, my mom has this saying, she says, behind every successful child is an astonished parent. But I tell my mom, she shouldn't be so astonished because that's the model that she set for me with her lives, my mom and my dad.
What do you feel were some of the habits that you honed in on to perfect your craft, so to speak, when it comes to policy, when it comes to educating yourself on how to do your job best? Obviously, you didn't arrive here overnight. This is a chain of intentional events that got you here, right? Are there any key things that you picked up along the way that you use daily to excel at your job? Well,
first of all, there are skill sets that we all use no matter where you are in life. Entertainment, media, policy and politics, athletics that really serve you well. And so, you know, I was an athlete. I was a high school All-American football player, but sports was really the area that I felt like I learned a lot of my great lessons about hard work, discipline, grit, sacrifice. When I got to Stanford, things went bad for me. I was this highly recruited athlete, but within a few months, I dropped way down on the depth chart. But I still decided, you know what, I'm going to take this adversity as a test. Can I emerge as a great student? Because I felt like I got into Stanford, not because of any academics. And so I felt like I had something to prove. And in the classroom where I was intimidated, I decided, you know what, I may not be as naturally gifted, smart as some folks, but I'm going to outwork everybody. And a lot of people who I see are successful are the ones that are willing to sacrifice stuff so that they can rise in what their chosen field is.
For me and the people that I hang out with, when we watch what's going on in the news and we're paying attention to this current political climate, it's at times tough to stay motivated. It seems hopeless a little bit sometimes, right? What do you say to millennials, to Generation Z, to those of us who are moving into a space where we will be effectively, you know, running the workforce and running the country, so to speak? Are there tangible exercises that you think could be going on at the community level to keep us engaged so that we stay in tune with what's going on and ultimately make sure we turn out to vote and don't lose focus?
Every decision we make is a political act with consequences. And there are a whole lot of people that are really invested in turning you off from politics. And by you being turned off from politics, they are winning as a result of that. Millennials, your generation, forget Republican or Democrat. All millennials, they overwhelmingly believe in everything from common sense gun regulation, immigration reform, marriage equality, marijuana legalization, keep the internet open and free, but they don't participate. In many ways, the complicity of people's apathy and lack of engagement is allowing narrow groups of political interests to do the things that are making people politically turned off. Imagine if the civil rights activists, I'm not talking about the 60s civil rights activists, I'm talking about people in the 40s and the 50s who were being beat and lynched and killed, if they said, well, this looks hopeless, I'm not going to get involved, where would we be today?
Right.
What about the suffragist jets or the abolitionists
Yeah.
who would never live to see the freedom that they fought for achieved? You know how hopeless it was to think we could end sweatshops or end child labor? It was impossible. People that organized, they didn't just lose their jobs, their livelihoods, they lost their lives, but they kept fighting.
Yeah.
And so if we who luxuriate in the blessings that were born from the struggles of those who came before, how dare we insult our history of activism by not being activists ourselves?
I think a lot about investing in correcting the criminal justice system. That's like a big thing. For me personally, I have friends who are in the criminal justice system, and it just kind of seems a little backwards at times, right? I don't think anything can be perfect, but people being stuck on probation for like 10 or 15 years just kind of seems outlandish to me, right? And that's just one issue. What do you think is are the most detrimental aspects of the criminal justice system as it stands? Like, what are the things that we need to attack first and correct, in your opinion?
So first of all, I think your focus is right. I think it is the biggest cancer on the soul of our country is what's happened, and since the 1980s alone, we've seen the federal prison population go up like 800%. Overall prison population in America go up 500%. The hypocrisy of it all, that you have people here in Congress who have used drugs, but yet still protect a legal system that is churning people into it. Not everybody. I went to Stanford University. There's no stop and frisks walking home from frat parties at Stanford University. There's nobody raiding dorms there. But African American communities, low-income communities in general, are so much more targeted by this criminal justice system and feeds upon the most vulnerable. Women, most people don't understand that we have a sexual assault to prison pipeline in this country. In other words, overwhelming majority of the women, about 86% of the women in our federal corrections and state correctional facilities are survivors of sexual trauma. We actually take girls who are victims of sex trafficking, and we often bring them into the criminal justice system because even though they've been victims and are survivors, we treat them like criminals. Instead of putting them in trauma-informed care facilities, we put them in facilities that compound their trauma. Over 95% of criminal convictions now are done by plea bargaining. And I've had young fellas sit in my office like you who say, this was the deal I was offered. Be trialed as a juvenile or cop to a lower felony charge and leave with a felony charge, or they would bring me into adult court, stack the mandatory minimums, I would face 20 years. Of course I took the deal to get out, but they don't realize, like you said, having a felony on your record is a lifetime sentence.
Right.
You can't get Pell Grants, you can't get food stamps, you can't get business licenses, you can't get jobs. You have a lifetime sentence. This system is toxic in every way. I wouldn't even pull out one thing. I would just, let's have a conclusion that this criminal justice system is wasting American taxpayer money. No other industrial society incarcerates like we incarcerate, to the tune of hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. Our roads are crumbling, our bridges are crumbling, all of our infrastructure has gone from the top of the planet Earth to now out of the top 10, except for one area of infrastructure which we are building like no other country, and that's prisons and jails. We were building one every 10 days between the time I was in law school and the time I was mayor of the city of Newark, New Jersey. And so this is costing all of us, and it's not making us safer. If you take a physically traumatized person, put them in jail, compound their trauma and the harm, psychological harm, by putting them in solitary confinement, by not giving them drug treatment or trauma-informed care, and then you put them back on the streets, is that person going to integrate in life? And so there's all of this stuff that makes no sense, is economically hurting our country, is wasting our dollars, is making us less safe by not empowering people to succeed with restorative justice, and it is disproportionately targeting low-income Americans and communities of color, to the point now where we have more African Americans under criminal supervision in the United States of America than all the slaves in the 1860s. And so this is something we should all be outraged about, not just young black men. Everybody in this country say this is a system that's not serving us, it's wasting our money, and not reflecting our values.
In terms of a country, in terms of just all of us together, we're in trouble because we're demonizing each other.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to people who are, I guess, in support of different political viewpoints, right? What are the steps we take towards reversing the effect that we're essentially having on each other?
Right. Well, look, you can't lead the people if you don't love the people. And if you want to be a leader, and you only love the people that think like you or agree with you politically, then you are diminishing your power to make change. I just believe you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to, and if we lead with a more courageous empathy, to sit down with folk, to listen to folks, because we do have more shared values than we think. Finding common ground is the only way we can really build and move forward. Two things: ending the apathy and lack of engagement gets more people into our democracy, makes it more robust. You're going to have more progress. But you're not going to have more progress by trampling over other people, but by finding ways to pull people together and advance. We cannot be a nation that just tolerates each other. Tolerance is just like stomaching each other's right to be different. I tolerated a cold I had yesterday. If that's the aspiration of this society, I'm going to try to change that.
Right. Okay, well, final question. I got to ask. Can we expect to see a presidential run in 2020?
So you can expect to see a presidential run. I don't think it's going to be me, though.
Okay, all right.
Look, my focus right now is 2018. Please.
Midterm elections.
Midterm elections.
Right.
This is the one that millennials, X-Geners, that we have to show that we're going to vote at 70%, 80%.
Yeah.
This has got to become the hippest election because it's the most consequential in my lifetime easily. And so that's why I don't want to give any energy to 2020.
Yeah.
I'm giving all my energy, soul, force to 2018, trying to convince people to come out and vote and try to make people who don't vote feel like those people who didn't march.